Hi, everyone. I have one of my favorite people in the world with me today, Rex Sikes. He's not only a best-selling author of one of my favorite books, Life on Life's Terms, which you can see behind him here, but he's also a whole brain learning expert, neuro-linguistic programming expert, and a myriad of other incredible things. And he's a father, and he's an actor. And I'd like you to kind of fill us in on other things you've been doing lately, Rex, and what's new.
Well, thanks for asking. What's new is I'm with you right now, and that's wonderful and beautiful, and I'm so thrilled and happy to be with you. I'm working on a few documentary projects, producing, directing, and promoting. Some of them that are in different stages of development. I'm teaching an acting class, and I teach my regular classes in manifestation and in discovering your inner authenticity and your connection with uh, I would say your concept of God, however you conceive that to be, or who you conceive that to be. And well, a myriad of things. My little girl dog had surgery today, so we got her back home a little while ago. So just been running around doing life stuff and enjoying the world.
Yes. And where do you live now? I forgot. You're in the Midwest again.
I go back and forth between the Midwest and home in Los Angeles. Currently right in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, not far from Chicago.
Oh, wow. I love it there. I love your daughter too, Sydney, and your little dog. But anyway, so I'm so thrilled to be with you and help us understand. I love spirituality because it teaches me that not everything is in the material world. I can't hit my problems head on, tit for tat. Whenever I fight anything too much or I worry too much or I'm in fear, um, I stay stuck. And it's as if I love the phrase from St. Francis, wear the world as a loose garment. And the other one, withdraw your attention from your enemies and they expire from neglect. My enemies are usually my worries and fears. So, how
Amen.
can we overcome our deepest fears right now and also maybe in the world right now, the lack of peace we're seeing? Where does it all start and how do you begin your day?
Wow, what a question. That's great. Well, first let's start with a little neuroscience. You know that what we don't really see the world at the time it's occurring. We see it a couple seconds, microseconds, milliseconds, late because it has to come in through our senses and then be processed by our brain, and then we need to be informed by it. So we're always looking at the world, but we're looking at the past. We're not looking at the present. We think it's the present because that's how we experience it or think we experience it, but it's actually a little behind us. So take that into a spiritual concept as well. What we're seeing when we see the visible is the old news. It's our conditioning, it's our training, it's our beliefs, our worries, our fears, our regrets, our angers, our resentments, whatever they may be, as well as the good things. And the invisible that has yet to manifest is actually the present and or the future.
Oh,
So we keep trying to change the past when we need to surrender to the moment so that we can step into that future as it unfolds. And so it's so difficult for most people because one, they don't, it's hard to believe, it's hard to experience it. Um, because of the conditioning we've grown up with, that we're conditioned by our societies.
I love the word surrender. I talk about that all the time because I've had two, I call them miracles, but actually miracles are natural law when you think of it the right way. And what you said about the invisible. I believe prayer is the invisible transfer of love to another. And if we were to pour love on every problem and to stop fighting anyone or anything, it's not just the easier, softer way. It actually results in evidence of healing, healing in my body. When I forgave my mother and when I forgave certain people in my life, my body healed. When I stopped looking back with regret, my backache healed. I stopped looking back so much, the back healed. It's like it's not just that our emotions are connected to our thoughts, but our emotions are connected to our physicality.
And our body is the past. So what you just said is so true. People are holding on, so they have maybe bowel issues or
Yeah.
relieving issues. They talk about their past and how it hurts or whatever, and their back hurts. They talk about broken heart. They have so it's important what we say. We tend to think. It's a reflection of what's going on inside of us, and it's the conscious part, what we represent. So when people say I have a problem, things aren't working out, I don't know what to do, they're affirming those things. It's like those are their prayers, and their prayers are being answered, and it's not what they want. So you have to, the way I like to think about things, Lydia, and I know you do too, but one of the best analogies I can give somebody is if you're in the water and a person is drowning or in quicksand, struggling, working harder, trying to get safe isn't the answer.
Right.
You actually should get on your back and float because your body has a natural buoyancy. And so if you relax and get prone, in other words, release all the trying, you can survive. And I learned this in another way. I'll tell you a short story. I was swimming in a lake, and I swam out, and I was having a great time. I was at Lake Michigan actually, and this was 40 years ago. And I tried to get back in, and I realized I'm fighting the current. I'm getting exhausted. My first thought is, I'm going to drown. But I remembered, fortunately, it's like divine a geology class I had that said, the waves of the ocean and lakes actually hit the shore at a 45-degree angle. They don't go straight in. So I looked at the waves and how they were going in, and I just swam along the wave, and it took me right to the shore faster. Otherwise, I would have got exhausted, and maybe not be here to talk about it.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I love that. Yes, when you relax, when you surrender and you stop fighting, everything goes your way, or you're saved. You
Well,
actually,
think about when people are in an accident, we have these things that we hold on to in cars, and they tell you not to hold on to them because you get rigid and then you get injured more. If you're it's like stunt performers who know that to fall they need to relax and roll and go with it as opposed to trying to stop and brace themselves. And so the biggest advice that anyone can give anyone about anything is surrender, go with the flow, allow what's happening to happen, and trust. And that's what seems to be difficult for most people, but that's the trust that everything is going to be okay,
right.
that it's going to work out, and importantly, that the issue you're facing right now is already solved. You just don't know it yet. You're in the past,
Oh,
so you
wow.
have to catch up to it.
Now, that's interesting. I never really heard that before until you said it, that we're always a couple head steps behind reality.
Yeah.
And now that I'm a spiritual seeker, I'm a metaphysician. I had a deep research in metaphysics, which I love because Einstein said no problem can be solved at the same level it was created on. You can't fight fire with fire, not really. You can't really create peace with bombs. You can't cure alcoholism or addiction with more drugs and alcohol. Those are patches, temporary relief. You have to go to a spiritual or diplomatic solution to create peace in the world, to create peace in your life. And, surrender. I had a major surrender one day of when I was on the verge of suicidal depression. And I literally raised my hand and admitted I had a problem in a 12-step group. And in one moment, it's like I had my entire life changed. And that was 30 years ago. And I've never had a craving to drink or do drugs since. And I kept wondering, what is this mechanism of surrender? What is it? Because there are times when you're so in fear that you really can't get out of it. So how do you give up your fear when you're really stressed? How do you do that? That's a hard one, right?
Yeah, I mean it is for everybody because we have this monkey mind, it jumps from branch to branch to branch to branch and back and forth and it's active. The mind itself just never stops. And people who try and stop their thoughts have more difficulty than people who can let go of their thoughts, or to redirect your thoughts. So, you
Oh,
know, when something's bothering you not you personally, but when people are bothered by their thinking and their thoughts that you in the old days we'd go cancel or something like that because the key to transformation essentially is to notice that what you're doing isn't working. You mentioned the Einstein quote and it's beautiful, and he said another one, and that is imagination is more important than knowledge.
oh.
So what most people think their knowledge of what will solve their problem, what that is usually part of the problem because
Mm,
they think only if this only would happen this way, or if it only happened that way, or if it doesn't go the way I want, you know. And so they keep that monkey mind going instead of going, you know, I release this, I let it go. And people say, how do you let it go? And the answer to that is you let it go. I mean, you
Also, there's a way to substitute. I remember by pushing against something and to keep battering it isn't the solution. It's to think of different thought, transfer your thinking. I even say if you're stressing over you're going to drink, distract yourself. Go eat chocolate. Go to a movie. Entertain yourself. Laugh. Look at a baby's face. Look up. These
absolutely.
butterflies. Anything to distract to replace the thought. And one more thought on that regard. Oh, darn, I just had it, but I can't remember it. I'll remember it in a minute. But you're right. You can't really. Oh, Wayne Dyer's daughter. I remember reading a story where his 11-year-old daughter had a growth on her mouth, a tumor. And she'd gone to doctors and they'd gone to someone trying to pull it off and all sorts of medicines, and nothing would work. And she said, Daddy, I'm going to stop fighting it. Stop fighting this thing. And she said, I love you, but I'm breaking up with you. I don't need you anymore. And it went away. It was gone in the morning. And I thought, wow, whenever I'm trying to battle something I'm ashamed of, or I'm trying too hard to make something work and I'm ashamed that I keep thinking the same thought, hey, embrace the thought. Don't fight it. It's part of me. I'm human. I'm having a little bit of shame right now. I'm having a little bit of anxiety. Welcome it in and go, I can observe you leaving now. I don't need you anymore. You
Yeah,
know?
acceptance is probably the greatest tool. That's why going with the flow or allowing it or letting go is all about. It's accepting where you are, who you are, what is going on, what's occurring, and then showering it with love and with peace.
Oh,
Because if you fight it, you just if you put your hands together and you push, one hand is pushing, the other is pushing back. What people don't realize is, we think about gravity and that the Earth is, exerting this pull on us.
mhm.
But we actually also, when we step on the planet, we're exerting a force on the planet.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so there's always this kind of force that's going on, and that's what's happening in the mind. So what you just said a moment ago about look up or dance or sing is you break the state. You give yourself a distraction. You take a breath. You pause. You allow. You skip. You hum. You dance. You do whatever you can do to interrupt what is going on, because what's going on is like a train going down the road at a high speed, or a rail at a high speed, and it's going to keep going, and it's difficult to stop a train. I mean, Superman might be able to do it, in the cartoon movies, but for us, I mean, obviously the train would win. So our train of thought is the same way because it's been years of conditioning. So how do you get out of it? You have to stop. You have to pause. I created something called the Attitude Activator years ago, which essentially says the first key is a relaxation. You listen to headphones and you put it on, but it's designed that when you're stressed, when a person is stressed, when they're going through a tough time, when the world is not, conforming to what it is that you want, it says stop and
Mhm.
be different. In other words, in that stopping, in that letting go of everything, take a deep breath, change the state, and then shift. It's harder to shift if you're pushing against something, but if you stop and then go in a new direction, it's a lot easier. So I've always said that a stop sign is a gift for us because it tells you don't have to keep going in the same direction. You could turn, you could stop, you could back up, or you can proceed, but you always stop. And the automobile is a great example too, because in order to go from park to drive, you go from park to neutral and
Mhm.
then to drive. And then from drive, you go from drive to neutral to reverse. You don't go drive, reverse, because you'd kill your transmission.
That's very calming what you just said. Stop. Even take a step back. Look around. Feel yourself. Ground yourself.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath. There's a technique where you can touch your head and just feel loved. People who are lonely and alone and they don't know they're panicked. Love yourself. Your higher self is what I call God,
Yeah.
our highest self.
Well, and here's an interesting thing. Um, and I'm not trying to promote any particular religion, but I love two things. I love the Lord's Prayer and I love the 23rd Psalm.
Mhm.
And I love something else that I'll talk about in a minute if we have time. But the Lord's Prayer says, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So it's already there. Now it's thy will be done. and give us our needs, that kind of thing, and our daily bread, forgive us our trespasses. Well, what are our trespasses? Somebody would convince you that, it's some form of doing something wrong, but really it's just resisting,
Right, right.
not going with
Yeah,
the flow.
I
And the
love that.
and the 23rd Psalm says, that no matter what, the Lord comforts me. The rod and staff comfort me. And the phrase that I love of that almost more than anything is, He anointed my head with oil. He prepares the banquet for me in the presence of my enemies. In the presence of my enemies, thoughts, things that aren't going right, there's a banquet, there's a celebration, there's a nourishing, we're being fed during the very time that we have problems. And what humans tend to do is fight the problems instead of going, this is something to celebrate. This is a banquet.
I just heard that today in my meeting. I spoke at a 12-step meeting just a minute, an hour ago. And one of my friends said out loud, it's in the struggle where we get the most growth.
Yeah.
Pain is a touchstone of all spiritual progress. In a weird way, these trials we go through are actually really feeding are teaching us what not to like and how to solve, and that we have a higher power that loves us. And you're starting with the evidence that everything is good to begin with, though, because you cannot fight if you believe in duality, that good and evil are both equally as powerful. It's hard. The great peacemaker couldn't heal that way. The truth is, everything is basically harmony. Darkness is the absence of light. Cold is the absence of the warmth of the sun. Let's say the sun is God and we are the rays. We express God. So you're right. I love the Lord's Prayer. I love that. And also I love a third step prayer in the 12 steps. Free me from the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take
Yeah,
away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy
ex-
love, thy power, and thy way of life. And
absolutely.
thy will always. And it's easier, you know, to
I say, if you consider something a problem, it's a problem. If you consider it a blessing, it's a blessing. So celebrate everything. The moment that we make a distinction that this is wrong, it doesn't mean that we can't. But it's what happens is, because I mean, if you're walking down the street and you have to go that way versus the other way, you need to know that. You need to be aware of it. But both ways are equally valid. It's just one takes you somewhere else. And so rather than fighting it, understand it, accept it, realize that if you weren't uncomfortable, if we as humans weren't ever uncomfortable, if it weren't too hot, we wouldn't have air conditioning. If it weren't too cold, we wouldn't have heat and clothing.
yeah.
All of the struggle, all of the stuff in history has resulted in all of the things that we have that we developed as humans, both good and not so good, in terms of whether it's more peaceful or less peaceful. Um, but it's all it all it I mean the statement of it is what it is, or is real truth.
But there's another ingredient that I just have recently been expanding upon in my own life, and I heard this from Mary Baker Eddy. Whatever holds human thought in unselfish love receives directly the divine power. In a weird way, it's like perfect love casts out fear. Okay, perfect love is God, right? It's divine love. Unselfishness is kind of what the Prince of Peace kept saying. It's like give your shirt off the back to the poor. Help
Wow.
your neighbor. Love your neighbor. Don't hate him. You don't have to hang out with him, but you don't have to, you're not allowed to really hate someone because that only hurts you. Forgiveness heals the body. It really does heal the body. I've had actual physical healings from that, as I said earlier. But I was telling you this example earlier that I know a guy who had a broken down car and he started delivering Meals on Wheels. And from that moment on, the car never was out of commission. He was always had enough money to repair the car. It always had enough gas in it. Every need was supplied. The more he helped others, every need of his own was supplied. It is a circle, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I have another saying. When you throw out a boomerang will come back. You don't get a teacup coming back. So what you're putting out is what you're getting. So if you go first, and what is the greatest commandment again, we'll use the Christian Bible, but I love all of the spiritual texts.
I love all religions, yeah.
It is the first greatest commandment is love God with your whole heart and soul and love your neighbor as yourself. So the best example of that is with Jesus on the cross is beaten and bloodied and nailed and suffocating and the whole thing. And he goes, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do.
Oh no.
In
Wow.
his most horrifying, horrible, terrible moment of intense physical human pain, he's like, they don't know what they're doing. Forgive them. He's not going, you know, pounce on them and let's get
Love
even.
that. Right. Oh my God, I love that. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. The
And who
love
does?
melted their hearts. That kind of compassion saved the world. That kind of compassion.
But and the interesting thing about it is they know not what they do. And they know what they're doing, but they know not what they're doing. And so we also treat adults as, that jerk, that so and so, that this, they should know better. But if you could stop and just go, we're really just people who don't know what we're doing. We're like little children. You don't. I always say you don't punt the baby when the baby falls down. You don't kick it across the room. You nurture it. You encourage it. You direct it. You go, yeah, come on, come on, come on. You can do this. And we don't what we've given that up when it comes to other people because we think that they can somehow harm us or hurt us or interfere with us because that's the mentality we have about it.
We're giving
Jesus.
them, we're actually focused too much on the personality rather than the core inherent soul of each individual. Let's say someone you hate, you're looking at his personality. That's the surface. Behind the personality is the core being, the core soul of that being. Why hate the personality? That's something you're fighting a paper dragon. So
Right.
you're right. It's like that's what he meant. Forgive them for they know what these personalities are all warring and we're fighting and we're acting crazy. We're all selfish. We all want territory. Ukraine, that Putin wants that territory. If we were to see him in our mind's eye differently, and this is how I pray for people that are hurtful to others, I see them as their true self coming through. I see that the goodness inside the true person underneath the personality behind it. And that's been working. I actually had a couple of amazing things happen with seeing some people I really am angry at. And I stopped hating them because if we fight them at that level, we stay stuck in that. That's all we see in our brain, in our viewfinder is the evil they're doing. But if you think about how we fought the Taliban with bombs, it's like we took a bomb to a tribal bunch of people that were running around in tribal outfits. They didn't have bombs to fight us back, so we made them bigger. We made our enemies bigger. We made people hate us more by fighting them.
Well, and it's not that you can't write or correct something. It just means if somebody's doing something that you disagree with, just stop the judging about it,
Mm.
and accept them for who they are, love them as the commandment, forgive them as a commandment, and then do what you can to correct the thing. Like what you said about the gentleman who's delivering Wheels on Meals and his car worked. He always had the money because his life was of service. He was doing something that was adding value, helping others. And I think what you see mostly is when people are trying to harm others or take from others or profit off of others or break somebody else's spirit, they're not happy people. They may have more money, they may have more power, they may have more prestige or fame or any of this, but they aren't necessarily any happier, you
No.
know, they may be temporarily. But the point is, if you hate them, you're not helping them. Gandhi was a beautiful example of that because of his influence they were able to bring the British government to its knees peacefully without ever firing a shot. Martin Luther King attempted the same thing and was assassinated. So I mean, it's not that there aren't things that happen that we don't want to happen, kind of thing, but we need to understand that what you said, if you can't fight fire with fire because it just, you if and I learned this as a kid, if somebody wanted to beat me up and I beat them up, it only made them madder. It didn't, it
Or
didn't, it didn't really resolve anything.
when you
So,
walk away, you have all you feel powerful in a weird way because silence is power often, you know?
well, I mean, you see the examples in movies, but it's really true. Somebody gets in a fight, they call their big brother, and the big brother comes over and pounds somebody, and then they get their big brother, and then before you know it, you got the Hatfields and the McCoys, and everybody's angry at everybody. So the best thing to do is to not is to love because the power of love is not weakness. The power of love is the strength that we have. And it's so much more effective to be peaceful and to love and to be accepting And if you want somebody to listen to you, the best way to get someone to listen to you is not go, hey, listen to me, is to listen to them
Right.
because they'll want to reciprocate. You want somebody to smile at you, smile at them first. If you want somebody to respect you, give your respect first. Let them know because if they know in their that their interests are in your heart, they're more willing to do the same for you. It's when they think you're trying to get something from them or cajole them or push them or punish them is when we have problems. And what you see in the world today is this notion of, well, we can just bully people around, we can force people, we can lock people up, we can do whatever we can. And it's not making it a better, nicer, more wonderful place for anyone by doing that. And it's contributing to the harm.
Let me ask you a question. First, let me just tell you, also with foot rubs and back rubs, when I give my partner, my boyfriend, foot rubs, he gives me foot rubs. I've actually gone overboard saying if your back is hurting, I'm going to rub you. I'm going to do 12 days of rubbing your shoulders. And our relationship has gotten better and better and better the more I'm giving and the less greedy I am, by the way.
Right,
But
right.
let me ask you a question about, in Hitler's time, the Germans didn't speak out and they wish they had. A lot of them didn't speak out at all. They were afraid. I keep wondering if I should be sharing some of the bad news I'm hearing, or if it's in this day and age, we have news everywhere. Do I need to be sharing any more bad news? Feels like I'm advertising bad news, or should I be shining a light on the good things going on and bringing up, stop dwelling on it and pointing it out. I'm afraid of increasing it by pointing it out too much, but then again, I'm afraid not to say something when I see something really wrong. What do you do? What do you think?
You know, that's such a beautiful question. I think I don't know that there's one answer that serves everybody, or every situation. But I think a lot of it's in what you said. I'm afraid if I do this, then.
Oh,
If you do it without being afraid, then what? In other words, you could call it out
right.
without being fearful of calling it out. You can address it, and go, that's wrong. This is not the way to behave without judging the
Okay.
persons who are carrying it out. I mean, I think there are people in the world who are harming lots of other people in the moment, in the present, to not say anything if you could, but again, it's how do you do it? Um,
Yeah.
I hesitate to use the example because people use it as a justification. You know, uh, Jesus healed the sick, and when he said, "Are you um, are you healed?" They say yes. And he said, "Well, good. Your faith has made you whole. Right now, go and sin no more. Go, don't make the same mistakes. It's not about right and wrong. But don't make the same mistakes. Your faith, what you have done, has healed yourself." He didn't go, "Look who I am. I healed you, and you're so
Oh,
cool." By
no.
the way, the sign behind me, will point you. He put it on them, but he also did tell the money changers, get out of this temple. You're doing something wrong. And that's the part that's a little bit scary because people then think, well, it gives me license to tell people that they shouldn't be that way.
I've done that real quick. I've said, well, Jesus called the Pharisees and the money changers a brood of vipers. So I think if he did it, we could do it. But I don't know. Go
Well,
ahead.
no, but yes, but what I'm saying is understand that I think what he was arguing is, it's the behaviors that you're engaged in and the things that you're doing that are wrong. Even though he called them bruise of vipers, when he drove them out, he was like, this is a place of God, and you're turning into a den of thieves." In other words, there should be some sacred things. I think it's an example not to have like, oh, I can have righteous wrath, but
Okay.
to and because most people would abuse that. Spare the rod and spoil the child. So I'm gonna slam my kid.
Yeah.
Is the way some people interpret that, and I don't. I think it's the same thing with heaven and hell and all that stuff. Heaven and hell is within us. It's our thinking. It's the things that cause us problems. And people want to put it out there as a place. Well, okay, maybe, maybe not. But the key is how do we be gentler and kinder and more loving and more compassionate, more accepting, while telling people, it would be better if you do it this way. I think about how, again, when a child is walking or they do something wrong, some people slap the child, which the kid doesn't know what they're doing was wrong. until they learn that they're doing it, and then they go, well, now you should know better, and now they, we compound the problems instead of going, okay, they made a mistake. How do we correct it? The our government's making mistakes. How do we correct it? Not, not to
Yeah.
hate them or hurt them or harm them, because then we're not helping them. But how do we correct it?
Right.
Um, and I'm sure it's frustrating for a lot of people right now, given the political climate, because they're going, well, we have to wait till midterms. We have to do this. We have to do this. But some people are willing to follow the law, and other people are terrified that if they follow the law, we'll be steamrolled over because the laws may be changed against that. So we're in one of those situations,
Mhm.
um, kind of like Jesus on the cross was. We're in a situation where it's painful.
Mhm.
There are people doing things to other people, and what can we do? I think.
The law, I think law, if Jesus had followed the law, he wouldn't have healed on a Sunday, on a Sabbath. In other words, laws like these, they're cruel laws and unjust laws, like we're seeing some right now in our own country. Um, they're not meant to, they're put in by Congress and certain voters that have very bizarre ideas at the time, and those laws change every 4 years or every 2 years sometimes. But you know in your heart what's a bad law, and you don't follow a bad law. And I think it's like if you're going down a one-way street and it says one way and you're being chased by a fire truck is trying to get down that street and you got to move out of the way. If you go, it's one way, you can't go down that street. Yeah, you break that law because it saves lives.
Well,
Or,
that's a
you
good
know,
example.
yeah, and there's another example. But anyway, I believe some of these laws are not meant to be followed if they're cruel and they're unjust.
Well, again, if a person were about to walk off a cliff because they couldn't see it or didn't know, or fall or walk out into traffic, or a child was going to, you'd go, hey, I mean, you do everything you could to stop them. I think it's okay to alert people
Okay.
that there are dangers, physical dangers or emotional dangers, financial dangers, spiritual dangers, political dangers. It's okay to alert them. Because otherwise we would never change things. We would never evolve. We would never go, we'd just go, okay,
Oh.
if we didn't plow the fields, we wouldn't have food.
But that brings me back to what I think is the biggest issue of our times right now in the past 8 years or whatever is propaganda. I wrote a book on Stalin and his propaganda and his purges. And he put out lies all day long and no one knew the truth. And he actually had in the collective housing units where kids would tell on their parents, one mother accidentally put her coffee cup down on a photograph of Stalin, and her son turned her into the local KGB, NKVD at the time, the local police on the corner, and said, my mom disrespected Stalin. That night, she was picked up and taken away to the Gulag for 18 years in Siberia. So I'm saying this propaganda right now, how do you discern? I know how to discern the truth because I go to the moral law. I believe we were all more moral, the law of love. You don't hurt your enemy. You don't hurt your friend. You don't hurt your neighbor. You don't steal. You don't envy. There's a lot of different seven deadly sins and all that stuff. But to me, sin is simply separation from truth and love. It's not an actual, you don't get punished for those things. Um, we punish ourselves the most. But so how do we defeat this propaganda, these conspiracies that are flying around? A lot of my friends believed half the conspiracies, and that's why we're in the state we're in right now. They believe the lies that there were rapists and murderers coming in at the border. And, no, there's just as many, you know, neo-Nazis running around doing worse things that are citizens. And there are very few of the other.
What I love about all of what you're expressing is that it's accurate for what goes on. Two people can go into, you're in the entertainment business, you know this as well as anybody. Two people can watch the same show and have different opinions about it. One can hate it and the other person can love it. And if you argue about it, you may never come to an agreement.
Right.
So here's the thing, and it's something we all need to practice and all need to do.
Um,
Remember when Jesus is in, and I'm using Jesus a lot, but he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, and allegedly Peter takes his sword and cuts his soldier's ear off, and Jesus actually heals the person's ear and goes, do this. The thing about propaganda is,
Start over.
if
Say
some,
that again. Can you start over and say that again?
which part is about
There was a
Jesus?
glitch and you stopped, your film stopped for a minute. You said
Oh,
Jesus in the Garden of
oh,
Gethsemane.
so what happened was, Peter. It was allegedly Peter who cut off this one of the captors' ears while they were arresting Jesus, and Jesus said, he healed the person whose ear had been severed, and goes, "That's not how we do things," essentially, and he was let off,
Oh,
where
wow.
he was imprisoned and sent to death. Uh, so. And again on the cross, he said, "Not my will, but thy will." I mean, again, it goes back to surrender. So if you have a disagreement with somebody, and you go, and here's what people do. You go, "I think this," and the other person says, "Well, I think that," and then they argue over it. And then they give their supporting evidence over it. And then they get mad, and then they part, ways and hate each other. Okay. It's much curiosity of a child is the fascination of a kid who could look at a butterfly or chase the grasshoppers or play with squirrels. They're why? They're always asking questions. If instead of going, "I disagree with you," you said, "Well, how is it that, why do you believe that?" Not, "Why the hell do you believe that?"
Right.
But why? Tell me more. How did you come to that conclusion? Why do you think that? In other words, because they may never come out of it if you force them. It's just like, when you push somebody to do something, they resist, just like this, right? So instead of pushing, you invite them to say what's
Good.
important, why it's important, how they came to it, what their evidence is, and they go, "That's interesting. That's interesting." And you might occasionally say, "Have you ever considered this or that?" But sometimes people will talk themselves out of it because they're expressing it, and then they're thinking about it, and you didn't judge them, and you didn't prevent them from expressing themselves. And so often, people grab, propaganda is really prevalent today, and has been. But people latch on. They're either this party or that party or this. I think of all the religions there are, and many in the same franchise. There's like hundreds of different sects within.
44,000 different denominations of Christianity. I looked it up.
And they
44,000.
and they dis and the reason that happened is because they disagreed over some doctrine.
Right.
And so they said, "Well, and then I'm going to go over here and do what we want to do because you eat that way and we don't eat that way, or you do, and okay, but here's the we're one species going around the sun on a rock at 50,000 miles, and when you think about it, the universe, everything in the universe respirates. Fish respirate, birds respirate, trees respirate, insects respirate, humans respirate. There's this exchange of in and out, you know, and we live in a terrarium. I mean, think about that. We're actually in a terrarium, and people say, "Well, humans didn't have anything to do with global warming." Well, blow smoke into your terrarium, stick arsenic in the soil of your terrarium, pollute your little glass dome, and see how long your plants live. Obviously, there's some contribution that we've been doing, and maybe we were inching away or towards the sun anyway, but it's not one way or the other. It's there's life in the universe, and we are an expression of it on a rock. And we ought to learn how to get along because you and I are no different. We're expressions of life. We're breathing the same air. In fact, we're breathing the air that Jesus and Buddha and Muhammad and all these people breathed at one time because we're in a closed system. It's not going anywhere.
Mm.
And so, as the world is spinning and going around, the universe is moving and it's expanding. I mean, it's just the most amazing thing. And yet we're arguing over petty things. And the story of the Good Samaritan is a perfect example. Somebody who was unwanted stopped, enemies and took care of somebody because they were injured, they were hurt. It wasn't, "You're a different color, you're a different race, you're a different ethnicity, religion, you're a different political person, you have different national." This is one of us who needs help right now. And instead of locking people up because they come across a border, which to me is insane, and I could care less. Frankly, I mean, I could care less. It would be better to celebrate them. And what we've discovered is that those people who've come across the border legally or not legally or whatever can have contributed to our society. And by locking them up, we've actually been harming ourselves. And then the other argument is, how come you don't lock up the people who are allowing those people to work? I mean,
Oh, I know, I know. There's so many arguments on this front, and I, I have really good intellectual arguments, but I want to be able to see how we can get past this without, oh. going into every detail of the news. Although I must say, I am very upset that the what boggles my mind when I say propaganda is that I never knew our campaign ads were actually allowed to lie,
Yeah.
blatantly lie in campaign ads. When I saw the World Series and the current administration was allowed to put out relentless commercials saying that Kamala Harris is allowing rapists and murderers to cross the border. There are thousands of them. That's what these people believe is true. And you really can't blame the poor people who've been reading this, seeing these campaign ads. They believed it. And if you
Well,
fact check it, the weirdest thing in the world will come up. The Cato Institute, a very big conservative think tank, a libertarian and conservative think tank, Cato Institute, has all the evidence that Biden let in fewer refugees than Trump ever did, that Biden was way, way harsher on, he allowed in fewer even asylum seekers, that there was a very orderly process to it all, that the kind ones that escape over the border, those are caught usually, that he sent back more fentanyl than ever before, and that it was all a big lie. And so
right.
they're basing all this weird cruelty right now on a lie. It's the
Well,
lie
and
I
I mean,
can't stand.
your point is well made and well taken. And sadly, it's true. A lie repeated often enough becomes substituted as the truth. That's not just the lies that other people tell us; it's the lies we tell ourselves. So, I mean, it has an effect everywhere. And living with hatred, living with fear, living with anger, living with prejudice is not a really good way to live. I have for a long time been a proponent and argued for this. In a courtroom, and we've seen this recently, in a courtroom, you have to tell the truth or you're held accountable. So your First Amendment rights are somewhat fashioned by the context that you're in.
Ooh,
But on the courthouse steps, you can say anything you want.
right. Good point.
you know and I've always said if there should be a zero tolerance for lying in politics, religion, or anything. It's hard to enforce, obviously, but the
Uh-huh.
point is, if somebody's caught in a deliberate lie, they should be held accountable. And it's happened. Look at what happened to Al Franken for something that was just a joke that didn't even happen, and he left office because people pressured him to leave office. And other people have done egregious things
I
and have
know.
lied and deliberately lied and hurt and harmed and done all these things, and nobody does anything because they're the people in power.
Wow.
Interestingly enough, and here's how I like to think about it, and I didn't originate this, is when the founding fathers came over here, they were flawed people. They had slaves. They weren't necessarily great. They were greedy landowners, all this kind of stuff. But they were escaping tyranny from England, and they came over here and they decided to fashion a document and create a country at peril, at American Revolution, that would serve them. And then as time went on, it been adopted to include people of color and things like that. In other words, all people, right, as opposed to just the landowners. But
Mhm.
we did horrific things to the people who were here, and stuff. So the point is that the founding fathers crafted this document and the Declaration, and ultimately our Constitution, and they united the colonies because they had a vision of a country that was different from the one that they had left, and so they tried to right those wrongs, and they set these documents down, and we ultimately united 50 states, and they joined, and we have 50 states and some territories and things like that. But they did that because they were joining a vision of something. And what we have now is chaos and confusion, and the red hates the blue, and this state wants to secede from the thing. And we don't have United States. We've got a divided states. We've got a divided mentality. We're being ruled by chaos and confusion. We live in Orwellian times where, the the double speak and the triple speak and the lies are flowing like never before. It's harder to ascertain the truth. We've got AI, which could be a blessing, but can also be a horrible curse. I mean, there's all this stuff. We're living in horrible times, but these are opportune times because they're the ones that get us out of our comfort zone. And
Thank you.
if we pay attention, we can get through it. If we're sleeping at the wheel, we may find ourselves worse off than we were, or do something really dumb because that's possible too.
What do
And
we do right now, you and I? What can we do, or what can you tell people? How can you give people hope right now?
I think people need to wake up. Like the first thing is to clean your own house, take care of that, get your spirit, your mind, your heart aligned, become as authentic as you possibly can. Understand that the biases and the prejudices that we all hold are those that were passed along from family to family to family to family, or group to group to group to group, and that not just because we believe something doesn't mean it's true. And that goes both ways. Just because I believe it's going to be a better day doesn't mean it will be. But just because I believe it's going to be a horrible day doesn't mean it will be. The nature of belief is such that we operate from whatever premise that we have, and we tend to find whatever it is we think we're going to find. So if we expect the worst, we oftentimes bring the worst. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if we begin to expect the best, as you talked about, like releasing, letting go, or serving others, and those kinds of things. So it's really to understand that we're on this rock, we're not going anywhere. We need to learn how to cooperate and to collaborate and to be compassionate to ourselves so that we can create as less friction as possible within ourselves to release, let go, and go with it. Another concept that I say. People say go with the flow. Well, if you're in a kayak or a canoe and you're going down the river, you go where the river takes you. It's a whole lot easier than trying to paddle against the stream. But when you're going with the flow doesn't mean you can't steer the boat from one side to the other. You can go on this side or that side. If you have a rudder. So the point is you can steer things. It's the idea. Let's talk the native idea of if you take a tree, you plant a tree. You give back, you
Right.
know, and if you want to garden, you have to plant the garden. I mean, certainly there are natural ones, but if you want to make that spot a garden, you have to till the soil, you have to take care of the soil, you have to do it, and then you have to nurture it because if you leave it alone, the weeds will come up, the animals come in, the birds will, whatever. So there's the process of care. It's self-care, but the
Mhm.
best care that for the planet is to care for yourself enough to love yourself, to love other people.
But
Because
see,
if you're afraid of other people, that means you're afraid inside. But if you can embrace all people of all races, all religions, all nationalities, all creeds, all this,
I go by racism is a vitamin D deficiency. I remember studying how we're all born in Africa. My thesis for college was on three books: African Genesis by Robert Awdry, Black Like Me, where the
right?
guy dyed himself black. He turned his body black to live along among black people. That was an amazing story.
It was, and we all had to read it, years ago because we're a little bit older than some. I'm sure that that's
Yeah.
not reading now.
Yeah, and the other book was the autobiography of Malcolm X, and I studied how, and I recently gone back to look at science, and they've proven that we all started at the equator. If you're going to live in the mortal realm, talk about life here on Earth, and that as the northerners went more north, their skin got lighter and their eyes became more blue and pale because they had less melanin. They had to let in more sun. So we became lighter skinned. We weren't as strong as people who live at the equator. Darker skinned people are stronger people. They actually have better skin because they've absorbed the sun. They have more melanin. That's all it is. So to these neo-Nazis that would be so prejudiced against dark
And
people.
they're afraid that the white race will disappear because there's brown and white, blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing: we need to understand that they're terrified.
Mm.
They're scared. That's why they're acting out. They're scared. They're like, you know, and when you're scared or you're angry, you tend to fight, you tend to hurt. And so we need to find a way to heal their wounds. And one of the things I so appreciate about you is you're a television star, you're a movie star, you're a person who's been in the entertainment business forever, and you have this awareness and this spirit and this authenticity about you. And because of your life and the different experiences. You're there serving people,
But
but what?
thank you for saying that, but it's because I
I'm
suffered.
so enamored by the fact that you serve so many people and your goal is to help people and you're compassionate and you have a platform that maybe other people don't have, but you're using that platform to spread good and to spread love and to care and to healing. And that is so important for all of us to do whatever our platforms are. So
Well,
I thank you and I applaud you for that. I love you so much.
I love you, Rex. I love you. I love you for using your platform this way. You have more knowledge than I can fit into this tiny show. I want to have you back. But I actually, there's a quote in the 12-step literature that says, pain is the touchstone of all spiritual progress, which I said earlier. The truth is, I had to fall down, embarrass myself, be an asshole. I have hilarious for some reason, after I got sober, every tragedy in my life turned into comedy. And I see even my precious brother's death, writing about him, I couldn't stop giggling about how he used to keep his money in the waffle iron. There were so many cute stories about my precious brother, Paul. And I don't think we're meant to be, it says this life is not meant to be a veil of tears. We're meant to lighten our spirits, lighten each other's load, encourage each other, make each other laugh, share each other's gifts, share gifts with each other, even lighten the spirit. I've heard of neo-Nazis who've turned around and found out they did something wrong and started to love
Right.
black person. There's a famous head of the Ku Klux Klan who was so ashamed of his behavior. He didn't know better. And that's why I don't like these brainwashing, this propaganda seems to be swaying people to be in fear of the other, fear of other people. It's never about that. That's what Hitler did. He made you afraid of Jews. He, I don't want anyone to say we're afraid of immigrants. The whole world seems to be anti-immigrant right now, but we're all immigrants. We're all refugees. Hardly any of us were Native Americans. We're all immigrants. My father was born in Russia, raised in Shanghai. He had to come over on a boat and he applied for citizenship. When I was 4 years old, he became a citizen. And it's like, oh God, I love immigrant stories. And we need to love each other. And only through my own foibles did I learn the hard way that I need to be more compassionate. I suffered to learn this. So I think telling people stories of your life is like, I want to hear your story someday. It's hard to paste it on as advice until you've seen where someone's come. And Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talked about if you were in line behind, a person who's taking too long at the cash register, and they're dropping things, and you're impatient, and you're going, God damn, why is that guy taking so long? And if you knew he just lost his wife that day, and his little children lost their mother that day, wouldn't you have more compassion? I mean,
Yeah.
isn't that what we need? Is to really care about each other, and not from more for me, but to really care. You know, I was blaming my husband for being a con artist, and then I realized he's witnessed his mother's suicide right in front of him at puberty, and I found a way to have compassion for him.
Beautiful.
And that's what it takes in this world right now for us to love each other, I think. One person at a time, right?
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And thank you for sharing all of that because, you know, I'm not a patriot. I mean, I like America. I think America does some great things. I think they do some horrible things. I mean, it's the nature of everything. I mean, I have children who misbehaved and the children who've done beautiful things. I mean, it's just the way the world is. There's night and day, and there's tall and short, and there's in and out, and there's all these different kinds of things. So as an example, I have two pit bulls.
Hmm.
They're the most loving, kind, gentle dog. I trust them completely with my life. I would sleep with my face next to their, it doesn't matter. I have complete faith in them and they have complete faith in me. And people say, well, that's because of who you are. You're the trainer. I go, no, they showed up that way, that they were just that kind of spirit. And yet pit bulls are really disparaged. Insurance companies won't insure you. You can't get an apartment building. You can't do all these things. I've had cops calling me multiple times at dog parks going, this guy's got pit bulls, this, that, and the other. And yet, every dog park that I go to, that I'm a party of, I don't have to say a word about my dogs because everybody else will go, the most gentle, kind, wonderful dogs you'll ever meet. Their reputation precedes them. And so I've met three different people who've all worked for more than 20 years each at the Humane Society. One is in the board of directors and two were workers. And they go, pit bulls are our favorite dogs. We've never had an incident with a pit bull. Every other breed we've had problems with.
Wow.
One of the cops that called, what was called, came up to me and said, okay, you're fine. You've got pit bulls. He said, I have a pit bull. I have a Chihuahua. The Chihuahua is the problem. The pit bull is fine. The point is that they are disparaged, not because there weren't examples of pit bulls doing egregious things at times, but they get painted with the same cloth that brown people and black people and yellow people and red people and even white people get painted with. It's prejudice, it's bias, it's fear, it's unknown. They don't know what are they operating off. Well, I heard a story, I saw the news, this bit happened, that thing happened. They don't have the experience. When they meet my dogs, they go, oh my gosh. But if I'm walking down the street with my pit bulls, I will watch other people pick up their dogs, they will grab their dogs, they will run the other way. I'm like, you just don't know my dogs.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
that's and it's the same about each of us. I'm not a patriot just because I was born in this country. It's a crapshoot. I didn't choose, I mean, maybe I did, but I'm saying I didn't choose to be born in the year I was born, in the place that I was born, in the country that I was born, to be the gender I was born. It just seems to be a universal crapshoot or a joke or a cosmic, intention. But the point is, I'm an expression of who I am here for
Right.
a certain period of time, as you are and as we all are. So I'm not patriotic just because I was born on some section of the earth. I'm patriotic because of the good things we do, and I'm patriotic to be critical of the not so good things we do. And if somebody wants to come to this country, which I grew up in with a Statue of Liberty saying, "Bring me," I'm like, yeah, why shouldn't they? So,
Exactly.
and every time I've gone somewhere in another country, we have a reputation. The Ugly American was a book written a long time ago because we're in a big spacious thing. We talk loud, and other people don't talk that loud. They're smaller, different customs, aren't wrong. They're just different.
Right.
And if I come to your house and I shit all over it, you're not going to want me back. So, the thing to do is to try to enter your home or your space with respect and to bring value to you and to not move your stuff around and tell you how to live and do all that kind of stuff because you're inviting me into your home. So I get that people are upset because they look at it like people are taking jobs or they're doing this or they're doing that, but pretty much like the pit bulls. They're just operating on the propaganda you were talking about. They don't know any better, and they don't even know that they're doing it. They just think that they're right because someone told them that's the way it is. So you got to forgive them because they don't know what they're doing.
Gosh, it's such a, I believe we're all here to share our creative gifts with each other. Like I said, you know, farmers, chefs, cooks, writers, directors, actors, musicians. We all have something beautiful to give. If we could just stop looking at each other as hate groups do, as color, tribe, identification, gender. Screw that. We're all human. We bleed all the same color. Love each other. Pour love on everything. Christ said, and I use the word Christ because Christ is the resurrection of love within all mankind. Religion is man-made. Religion is kind of what hat you wear, how many bows you make to the left. And I always share this story about my son. I asked my son's social studies teacher one day, "What religion are you?" And he said, "Western Orthodox baseball." I think that's a good answer because religion is it's all tribal and we're fighting too much over religion, whereas God is the fundamental idea of love within all mankind. And we're all based in that love, and we all need to just let go of fighting. And you're a blessing in my life. I love you so much. I want you to tell me one final beautiful thought you can give the world right now on how to help, help humanity or help your neighbor or help me right now. What is can you come up with what's your best
I,
advice?
I spin a little bit because of what we just were talking about. You've seen the meme or the ad or the of all the different colored eggs, on the outside, the brown shells and the white shells, but you crack them up, they're all egg.
Yeah.
I had an anthropology professor years and years ago who said, there's only one race and it's the human race. If you cut people, they all have the same colored blood. And I think it was a brain surgeon who said, I operate on brains of all different kinds of people, red, yellow, black, and their brains all look the same on the inside. It's just the outer shell that differs and the preferences based on where you've been brought up, and the rules that you followed and all that. They're all arbitrary. They're all made up. They're not, if you take a white baby and raise them in China, they'll grow up speaking Chinese. If you raise a black baby in China, they grow up speaking Chinese. You raise a red baby in China, they'll grow up. I mean, in other words, it's what we're influenced by around us. And people will say, well, yes, that's the problem. But if you're focused on the problem, it's what you said about Einstein. The solution doesn't come from the same place that the problem is. You have to go beyond. And as Einstein said, that's why imagination is more important than knowledge. You have to be able to step out of the things that you and I are convinced are accurate and to let go of those things that hurt and harm others. Buddha said, hating another person or your anger is like drinking poison, expecting it to hurt the other person. And so the more that we can enlighten people to that notion that you're not really harming them as much as you are taking a toll and harming yourself. And that's whether you blame them or blame blame yourself because people do the self-blame thing. They do self-loathing. They talk about self-sabotage, which you cannot do. It's a silly notion, but people adhere to it. Um, or they wait to be motivated because they think somebody else will do something and they'll somehow feel, so we live under these delusions that we accept as real. And the best thing you can do is just try to clear your head space of that and your heart space of that. And what truth will arise
Mhm.
is a truth that if you stop thinking of problems as problems and start thinking them as opportunities to live differently or to discover different things, to get curious about what's the good in this. You know, here's you and I are on computer, and people are watching this on either TV screen or computer screen or whatever. So they're focused on us. But you know what? Off of the screen, there's everything else.
Mm.
But our focus is on this thing. So think about it. If people have watches and they look at their watch, or now people walk around looking at their phone and they bump
Mhm.
into walls or whatever. People, sadly, they're texting while they're driving and doing this. But the point is, there's what you're focused on, and then there's everything else. If you understand that everything else is an opportunity to discover something that you don't know because you're focused on this, then the world is infinite. Your possibilities are infinite. The resources are infinite. The opportunities are infinite. Instead of being so focused on the things that hurt and suffer and cause you pain and angst and hate and all those kinds of, focus on the good that's coming to you that you can't yet see and realize that you're living from the past. And what you want to do is get present enough to discover what else is there so
Mm.
that you can enjoy that and live free and live with love and live with compassion and live because the lilies of the field don't toil and the birds, that kind of
Right.
we need to just say life is a celebration and the whole thing is about having fun and love and gentleness and kindness.
Right.
It's not, we've been convinced that it's death and taxes, but it's other things.
Oh my God. I had so much joy when I started becoming a child again, when I had that first big
Yeah.
coincidence that was so uncanny. My first 12-step meeting, it was like really, really supernatural stuff was happening. And it started happening over and more and more and more because I had the mind of a child. I had a lobotomy that day. I removed my old brain. I became childlike and I had a sense of wonder. Everything was new. And I fell in love with butterflies. I had a miraculous experience on learning that the universe is interactive. It wants to show off for us, but we're never present enough. We're never right here now. Rocketed to the fourth dimension is right now in the present moment, because we're always worrying about the future and regretting the past, and there you're not here now. And I had no idea how powerful that was. You can hear it until you experience it. And that's when all the gifts started opening up and coming to me. Like the things, it was amazing when I let go. But in the middle of really bad turmoil in my life, I had those moments of letting go and having the miracle happen. So you're right. I like it you said, not silver linings as much as opportunities in the middle of all this right now. And the worst, what we see is chaos. And they say chaos theory. There's a beautiful pattern forming if you're coming from a high enough vantage point. Have you heard that chaos theory that from a high enough vantage point, what looks like chaos up above is a beautiful pattern is forming. So what you said is opportunity exists right now.
And in my workshops, one of the things that we used to do is we take a puzzle and we put it down on a table, and then people as a group try and work on the puzzle, right? And so people try and do the boards and everything. And at a certain point, they get stuck, they get lost. But you tell them to stand on a chair and look down on it because it's a different vantage point.
Oh my God,
They're
exactly.
all like this, they're too close to it. But you stand on a chair and look at it, or climb a step ladder or something, look down. You see the differences, the pieces that you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Well, my first sponsee taught me a lesson once, and it was in my wedding vows actually. She said, think about it this way, in the presence of love, and let's say everything is love. This earthly plane is it's all love. In the presence of love, anything unlike love needs to come up to be seen first to be healed, like a volcano or a pimple. It needs to explode to create new land. Maybe that's what's happening now. We're in one of those stages of recreating a new world, right?
out of chaos, stars are born. I mean, if you look at the universe and you believe the Big Bang, then it all happened from an explosion, and we're still moving, through space and discovering new things. And here I will say this: if people go, I don't know how to do this, just think of one of the examples I use is the Wright brothers, who decided they were bike man, people, and they wanted to create a heavier than air aircraft that would fly, and nobody'd ever done that, right? So they're experimenting as well as other people, and even their own father said, you guys are idiots. Everybody's laughing at you. You give it up, give it a rest. I mean, you're never going to fly. But they stuck with it, and they kept trying to fly, and through lots of failure, they would try something and it wouldn't work, and they try something else, and it didn't work, and then finally one day it flew. And here's the important lesson: they didn't know how to fly until after they flew.
Oh, right. That's it. Oh, that's it. Oh, I love that.
Once they had that 12-second flight, they could improve on it. But before that, they were experimenting.
Oh,
Their experiments didn't work out the way they had hoped, but they continued to experiment until it worked. And then they went, we know how to do it. That's why Archimedes ran Eureka to the king. It's like, yeah, suddenly we got it.
thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you. Yep. The solution, when you sit around waiting for a solution, you got to get there, take action, and the solution will come.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love you. You are so, tell us more about your book. Tell us something about your book and about your documentaries.
Well, I'll tell you about the book first. It's Life on Your Terms. And if I have rexsikes.com/book, if any of your viewers or listeners want to get the book, and I encourage them to do so, I think it's great. I will give them as a bonus, but they follow the instructions at that website, $497 valued online training about mastery called the Mastery Loop, which is how do you master your thoughts, your feelings, your words, your behaviors, or any talent or skill that you want to be able to master with less effort and more ease and more fun and more delight and swifter than you otherwise would. Because a lot of people beat themselves up and struggle to get better and do all these things, and you don't have to. You
Oh,
can,
wow.
obviously, but you don't have to. So, what Life on Your Terms is create the life you want and to be able to live the way you'd like to live, and get along with other people as well. So it's not about power; it's about personal power to live your life the way you want and to embrace that in the world. The documentary coming up is, well, we've got three of them right now, but one of them is tentatively titled The Peace Project. I won't give much more of it away, but I'm working with some incredible people and a beautiful man. His name is Kamal. He's a Jain monk, and or not a monk, but he's the head of the Jain religion in this area. Came to me one day and said, I'm interested in sharing this story with you. What would you do with it, kind of thing. And I listened to the story and I said, wow, that's cool. We could put something together. And then he came back in another meeting and said, I'm not trying to push the Jain religion or anything like that. That's the least of my concerns. So, but I think there's something here that because Mahatma Gandhi was a Jain. I mean, many people may not realize that, but the Jains they're true vegans. The Jain monks are naked. They don't wear any clothes. They have like peacock feather, some kind of brush that they brush the earth so that they don't lie down and kill insects. I mean, they're very austere in that way. But they are all of life is sacred to them.
Hmm.
And the word Jain, essentially, the idea is to be a conqueror of oneself. In other words, to be not a conqueror, but a victor of oneself, to master yourself.
Yeah.
And so this is what the documentary is about, is how do we master ourselves and then do that in such a way that we contribute to the world in a way that
Beautiful.
peace, peace within, peace without, from above, so below, from within to without. If you live it, and are an example of it, then other people can follow. And if you think about how little kids emulate people, then the cool thing is if you want them to do and be loving and kind and peaceful and compassionate, then we ought to be that way.
Exactly. Whatever you put out, you get back, and whatever you represent becomes your reality. Whatever you focus on grows. I love that. I love this talk. Thank you so
Me
much.
too. Me
So
too.
I'm so excited. Can you give your website one more time and I'll have it in the text as well on the podcast.
Sure. Well, they can. Oh, it doesn't show up below me. I see it up here, but it doesn't. Oh, yes, it does. Over
Oh,
in the
there
corner.
it is. Oh, good. We have it. Good.
Yeah, it says rexsikes.com/book.
Excellent. Okay,
There's
perfect.
other things. There's the Attitude Activator there. There's the book. There's other things that there. And then you and I have done some shows together. I have a show called Create Your Best Life with Rex on Rex Sikes TV,
Uh,
and also Rex Sikes Movie Beat. And I want to have you back as a guest on both of those shows, actually. So
we're going to back east this month, and I'll be back, and then I'll have this whole new fall to do a lot of fun things. And finally, when I have my project turned in, but I'm excited about that. I'm looking at myself as I'm actually enjoying the process for a change instead of looking for the results of what I'm writing right now. But thank you, Rex. I love you very much, and
I
give
love you. I only wish that we were closer more of the time. I mean, this is great, but I mean, I would, I'm not always back home where so
I know, but when you come back out here, we got to have lunch or dinner.
again, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I oftentimes, come across the pictures of you and my daughter and me, and every time I do, I fall deeper in love with the whole you and the whole thing. So thank you.
I miss you. Yeah, you look fantastic. Thank you so much for this wonderful talk.
Thank you.
And that's goodbye for now, but we'll have more podcasts soon, and this will be on YouTube as well. Okay. Thank you, Rex.